The tilt is real. The tilt is real. The tilt is real. The tilt is real. This is when the tilt is real. Let's go.
Welcome to another episode of The Tilt is Real Fantasy Podcast. Coming to you live from the chef's table, here are your hosts, James Crease and Juan Pena. Let's go.
Welcome into another episode of the Tilt is Real Fantasy Football Podcast. It is Wednesday, July 21st, and we are live here on a Wednesday night for episode 61. We are finishing up our AFC West divisional breakdown. If you missed any of our other divisional breakdowns, please go back and check out the other episodes anywhere on Apple Podcasts. Check out our YouTube channel. Find everything at The Tilt is Real. Quick reminder, if you're listening on podcast form and you'd like to be a part of the show, hit that like and subscribe button. To the show chat, just like Justin is. Justin says, what's going on? What's up, guys? And who is going to the Rams? He's going to start out some questions. But first, I'd like to introduce our guest for the evening, a very, very good friend of mine, Mr. Nate Polvogt.
What is up, Chef?
What is going on?
Really happy to be here, man. Always take any opportunity to get on the show with you. Obviously, we've got our Tuesday show, and we had our waiver wire show, and we had our game show. So I love doing shows with you, and I'm so stoked to be here.
Absolutely, man. Nate, if for those of you that don't know, he runs IBT Media. He is part of that group, and then he has a new project coming out, 32 and 32. Nate, tell us a little bit about that.
So this is actually my wife Jen's idea. Like 8 years ago, probably somewhere around there, 8-9 years ago, she came up with it. Just the idea that a lot of the podcasts run too long, like when you're trying to do start sit and figure out waiver wire stuff during the week, during the season, it's hard to dedicate an hour to an hour and a half to something. So we're going to do all 32 teams in 32 minutes. We're going to give you everything you need for your starting lineups and make it quick, make it easy. We have some divisional writers as well that we're going to be bringing in to write short waiver wire pieces for each division. Should be fun. We're looking forward to it. It's an exciting new thing we're doing. And it's going to be great.
Wait, did you just say 32 teams in 32 minutes?
Yep.
How the heck are you going to pull that off, man?
We do it every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night during the season. When we're doing our lineups, we talk and we figure we do it in about 30 minutes. We hit all 32 teams. I mean, the way that we're looking at it too is there are some teams, some weeks that are going to have zero fantasy relevance. Matchup wise, you just don't want those guys in your lineup. And maybe there's one guy that you think, okay, maybe I can play him, but we're going to hit all the big guys and some waiver wire people. But not every team gets a full minute, and not every team will be just a minute. So,
right on. That sounds exciting, man. I'm definitely gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, everybody should check it out. Obviously, I'm biased, but yeah.
Of course. All right. So to go back to what Justin said in the chat, welcome back, Justin. He said, "Who is going to the Rams?" And we'll jump in. We'll save that a little bit, because it's part of our newsreel. And if that, without being said, I guess we can get right into the news, Nate, because
it's been a week.
First and foremost, excuse the absence of Mr. Swanson and Mr. Juan Carlos Pena, FF one of a kind. They had to do their obligatory job today. They have obligations. They have to do certain things sometimes. And unfortunately, they could not be with us this evening. But that's why I have Nate in the building, holding things down. And we're going to crush it today with the AFC West. I'm excited.
Yeah.
Let's get into the news.
It's the Weekly Reel, presented by The Tilt is Real. It's the Weekly Reel. Let me hear the news.
Okay, if you've been living under a rock for the past 24 hours, you may not know that Cam Akers suffered a torn Achilles tendon while training on Tuesday. Akers will miss the entire 2021 season while recovering from the injury. And Adam Schefter from ESPN reports that the Rams don't have an immediate plan to pursue a free agent running back. So Nate, we talked about this a little bit on Coming Off the Edge last night. Well, we pretty much talked about it in its entirety, per se. But Justin wants to know who is going to the Rams.
That's a tough question. They seem like they're happy with what they've got. I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe AP end up there. Le'Veon Bell would probably be a good fit in that offense. And if they get Le'Veon Bell, forget about Darrell Henderson. I don't know, man. Like,
I saw some news about LaShawn McCoy going over there, and it's funny, LaShawn McCoy went to the Chiefs and they won a Super Bowl. He went to the Buccaneers and they won a Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be funny if he went all the way over to LA and won a Super Bowl? With
that team, I could see it. I'm really high on the Rams with Stafford. I don't know why people aren't more excited about that. Some are, some aren't. But I think everybody should be. He'd be an interesting fit for that offense. I don't hate that because you're not asking him to be the number one,
right?
He doesn't have it in the tank to be the number one anymore. He'd be probably a good fit. I could get on board with that. I hadn't seen that, but yeah, I could get on board with that.
Yeah, it makes sense. You see a tweet here, you see a tweet there. You never know,
right?
And Cruiser says Sony Michel. Oh man, why would they want to do that to themselves?
He might be good in that offense though.
I wish I had a list of free agents still available at this moment, just to mess around a little bit. But moving on in the news, Pro Football Focus's Doug Kyde reports that Jonnu Smith's hamstring will be ready for the start of training camp. Now, Smith has had over a month to recover from the hamstring injury that seemed minor when it occurred. He should have no problems at the start of training camp unless he suffers an unforeseen setback. Now, our friend Jeff Bell has been touting for Jonnu Smith at his current ADP for months now, it seems. And I think Jonnu is in a pretty good spot in New England with Cam Newton as his quarterback.
I think so too. I think he's in an even better spot when Mac Jones takes over, honestly. I think that offense is going to feed Henry and Jonnu, but I think Jonnu is going to be the guy he's going to be the Gronk to the Hernandez, if you want to maybe look at it that way. I agree with Jeff. I've been on board with what Jeff has been saying about Jonnu since he started talking about it. And the hamstring didn't really concern me. It was an OTAs, whatever. We're going to camp now.
Yeah, it was minor. You're right.
Yeah.
And I've been on the Jonnu Smith train since his real first year in Tennessee that he started to break out when what's the veteran that he took his job? Oh, Delaney Walker.
Yeah.
When Delaney Walker went down and Jonnu Smith kind of took over there in the mid-season. I think it was mid-season of 2019 where he just started to take over. He was able to rush the ball a little bit. I don't see him rushing the ball much in New England, but I do see him as the primary receiving option out of the tight ends. And if they run two tight end sets, it may work out perfect. Cam Newton has a noodle for an arm now, so he can't throw for long. And I think it's a perfect scenario. And a little sneaky stat, I've been looking at strength of schedules because for redraft purposes, it's important to look at your strength of schedules.
Absolutely.
And New England has the easiest strength of schedule, according to Fantasy Pros, for quarterback and receivers.
Okay.
So even though you're getting Cam Newton, you're getting Jonnu Smith later in drafts, they may bide well for you for at least this season. So I'm keeping that kind of under wraps from who I'm drafting against. But of course, I share it here on the Tilt is Real when need be.
Well, and I think that the thing that's interesting to me about the situation in New England is who are the real receivers there? They way overpaid for Nelson Aguilar. So, you're assuming he's the wide receiver one. And N'Keal Harry's terrible. Jacoby Myers looked decent last season. But then you've got Jonnu. I think Jonnu probably slides in ahead of Myers for targets.
I think he may actually lead the team in targets when it's all said and done.
That wouldn't surprise me at all. The way that McDaniels and Belichick like to run that offense, that wouldn't surprise me even a little bit.
I know they're not physically compatible to the Aaron Hernandez and the Rob Gronkowski physical stature of both players, but it wouldn't surprise me if they ran a similar type offense with the 2 tight ends. All right, so let's talk about some Steelers stuff. Speak of the week, and this is something that we've introduced in the offseason just to kind of get things, there's not much news out there. I mean, this week we had Cam Akers, which was really unfortunate. But Steelers' new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada, said he anticipates growing pains with the team's new offensive linemen. Now, the Steelers had a complete turnover of their offensive line since the end of last season. They released David DeCastro, Raymond Foster, Marquise Pouncey retired. Marcus Gilbert was traded. Alejandro Villanueva became a Raven after the Steelers didn't re-sign him. And now the team will head into the 2021 season with a far younger, more inexperienced offensive line. Now, you saw Ben Roethlisberger. I know I saw pictures today on Twitter with him rolling into camp, and the headline said slimmer. And I mean, first off, he didn't look slimmer to me. He looked like regular old Big Ben. But that makes me a little worried for Big Ben and the young Najee Harris, recently drafted Najee Harris, running back, with this new offensive line. Now, it's going to take them some time to get things in order over there. I mean, they're not just going to show up, go through camp, and be like, all right, we're ready to go. We've got this. Not up against an experienced defensive fronts like the Browns and the Ravens.
Right.
They are in a tough division when it comes to rushing defenses. So what do you think? Well, we'll just put it like this. How far do you think the Steelers get this season? Do you think they make the playoffs?
No, I don't. I think that out of that division, it's going to be the Ravens and the Browns that we're talking about at the end of the season. I don't know that Big Ben can stay on the field all season with the patchwork, brand new offensive line. And I mean, from the waist down, he's basically like super glued together, it feels like. I mean, he is so broken. So I think we end up seeing Dwayne Haskins get some playing time, which...
It's funny that you mentioned him, because I don't know if you saw the recent news on Dwayne Haskins. He just filed a domestic dispute against his girlfriend.
Yep, I did see that.
Apparently they were out in, I think it was LA or Vegas, one of the two. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. And she sucker punched him and knocked one of his teeth out.
Oh, God. I didn't see what had happened. I just saw the headline. That's crazy.
Yeah, I read the article. I'm like, are you kidding me? This guy just can't catch a break. He can catch a left hook, though, apparently.
No, he really can. It's a bummer because I was really high on him coming out of Ohio State. I liked the guy. I liked his work ethic, which apparently didn't translate to the Washington last year,
right?
Which is interesting. I think Tomlin's not going to let him screw around. Tomlin's going to force him to work, and if they've still got him. Obviously, he's shown Tomlin something that he's willing to put in the work, which makes his situation there interesting because you're putting a guy who, what was he, the 5th pick?
I think he went number 7 or 8.
7. So he was in the top 10.
Daniel Jones was 6th
right.
overall, I believe.
This is one of my weak spots, is knowing where people went in drafts.
Yeah, well, it's in the past. That's why. As long as it was in the first round, it really shouldn't matter too much, right?
Right. Well, so he was a top 10 pick.
Right.
And I do believe that the talent's there for him to be a successful NFL quarterback. Maybe this system is more beneficial to his skill. And if he does the work, look who he's got around him. If he gets a chance to play, he's got Najee Harris, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju Smith-Schuster. That's a pretty talented. Pat Freiermuth could be something. I mean, maybe
in the future. I believe. I think Eric Ebron has one year left.
He probably and he's got some weapons around him, and even bad offensive line. I mean, if Big Ben stays healthy, maybe they win 8 games, 9 games. Maybe they slip into a wild card. I think Najee Harris changes that offense, though.
Yeah, definitely. He is definitely an elusive pass catching back. Bigger, he can run through a wall if need be. I think I saw some college film of him jumping over a couple players last year.
Yeah,
so we should see some stuff. I mean, for anything, at least it'll sell tickets in Pittsburgh,
right?
That's for sure.
Yep.
All right, so we're gonna get out of that news talk and into the AFC. Oh man, I keep saying the NFC. Man, I'm committed. You
are.
But I'm contractually obligated to jump around, though. For the fantasy purposes, we're going to break down the AFC West right now. And I know, Nate, your team, you guys are mile high. You have high hopes. But we're going to start with the highest team in the division finishing last year. I believe they were 14-2, the Kansas City Chiefs. They rule that division, man, and no place better to start. Runners up to last year's Super Bowl. Not too many changes to the personnel for fantasy outside of Sammy Watkins leaving and going to the Ravens. But that brings up where we can start with Mecole Hardman. Now, I've heard whispers of Mecole Hardman possibly being good. What do you think he is capable of for fantasy relevance as a wide receiver 2 this year in that offense? His ADP coming in at 149, wide receiver 56. Is he one of those guys that you will not mind taking in like the 15th, 16th round of your drafts and taking a shot on him? Or would you rather take somebody else?
I'd rather take somebody else. This is the Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce show. And that's just all there is to it. And it's not a knock on Hardman. I haven't seen enough of him to really have a feeling one way or the other. I mean, he made it to the NFL, so he's obviously talented. And he's continued to be on that roster. So obviously there's some talent there. But really, I mean, he's not going to get enough targets, even at that 15th, 14th, 15th, 16th round ADP. If I can get him in like the 24th round, if it's a super deep league, I might take him in like the 16th round, maybe. But yeah. I just have a hard time with it because of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And those guys aren't going anywhere. They're not falling off.
Not this year.
I just don't know. I'm
actually a big Demarcus Robinson advocate. I like Demarcus Robinson. I liked how he filled in for Sammy Watkins when Sammy Watkins went out last year. His annual misses the games from 2 to 16 and then shows up in the 17th week, plays out the beginning and the end and then leaves. But I'm not really here to talk about Demarcus Robinson. My take on Hardman was that when he did get targets, he was good. All right, we saw week 3 last year versus Baltimore, 18.1 fantasy points. He wound up wide receiver 21 with 6 targets. So that's not that bad. Week 8, although it's against the New York Giants, he had 9 targets, went 7 for 96 and a touchdown. Now, if he were to continue on that target train, that's something that I would be willing to buy in on or even take a flyer on in the 15th or 16th round. But like you said, he doesn't get enough target share to be fantasy viable on a weekly basis, right? Even when he did have the opportunity. So why would I'd rather take a shot on someone similar near his ADP. Let's say Russell Gage, that I know he's going to be on the field all the time.
I've seen Olamide Zacchaeus going in that same range, same offense.
Rashad Bateman, I would even rather take a shot on in a lower passing offense. I'm a big Bateman truther. Sorry.
Me too. Me too. He's the wide receiver 1 in that offense. Obviously, we're not going to get like super deep into it, but there's a reason they drafted 2 wide receivers because they want Lamar to throw the ball again.
That's right.
They didn't throw last year because he had Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown.
And Willie Snead.
Willie Snead. But yeah, I mean, there was a reason he didn't throw last season.
And we'll go right back to the quarterback situation in Kansas City. We all know Mahomes is a generational talent, but is he worth taking at his current ADP of 13 as the QB1, or is it your opinion that it's a little bit of an overpay?
No, I don't. I still think he's that. Yeah, he'll live up to that ADP. It's not an overpay at all. I have no problem taking him that early. I would have taken him that early in Scott Fishbowl if I could have, but
really?
I didn't. He was the first pick off the board in our division.
I mean, in the Scott Fishbowl, it's one thing. It's a super flex league. Yeah, he's
efficiency,
probably going to score.
Yeah.
But like we saw Kyler Murray, we saw Josh Allen top him last year, although Mahomes went ahead of both of them. So in my opinion, with the ADP of the way it's going right now, you're getting Kyler Murray in the second round. You're getting Josh Allen in the third round, or I'm sorry, I might flip-flop those.
Yeah.
Allen in the second, Murray in the third. I'd rather have one of those guys and get a generational talent at running back because those are few and far between. That's just the way I draft.
Well, and I hear what you're saying. So because of injuries, I'm really leery about some of those running backs because if you hang your hat on Saquon Barkley or Christian McCaffrey again this year and they get hurt again, not that I think that's necessarily going to happen, but let's say I've seen Najee Harris going really early. What if he gets hurt?
I wouldn't take Najee Harris in the first round.
No, I wouldn't either.
No way. No way.
And these running back injuries seem to happen more often because it's a more bruising position. So I get nervous about that. I wouldn't say.
Mahomes got injured last year as well.
That's true.
Towards the end of the season.
That's true.
That killed a lot of people's fantasy leagues.
That's true. I'm comfortable with him. I feel like there's less of a chance that he's going to get injured and blow my season versus Saquon Barkley, Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, some of those guys that I'm seeing going ahead of him. But again, that's just the way I draft. I'm not zero running back, but I'm really cautious, and I like doing some of the later round guys and waiver wire for my running backs. I'm weird.
Right on. That's different. No, it's a different approach that we don't usually get on this show. So I'm, like Juan and Swanson, we are on the board of heavy running back early. So this is great that, you're coming on and saying that you do a different strategy in redraft and you're willing to go get the Mahomes and possibly the Kelsey. And we can move right on to that.
Yeah.
Like his ADP is 8 overall. Now, is your strategy, if you're sitting at the 108, are you taking Travis Kelsey and then trying to hope that Mahomes falls back for the stack? Is that something that you strategized before?
Yeah, I've done that before. I'm still really high on Kelsey because I don't think we're going to see a dip. This dude he's like Tony Gonzalez to me, where Tony Gonzalez was fantasy relevant until the day he retired. Antonio Gates was almost the same. His last season, he wasn't fantasy relevant, but before that, he was. Kelsey's the same kind of player. He doesn't get hurt very often, knock on wood. But he's a big, durable tight end that, essentially, he's almost the wide receiver 1.1A or 1B in that offense. So, yeah, I'm okay with that because when guys putting up 20-plus point games at tight end every single week, there ain't nothing wrong with that. And I'm okay with taking him at 8.
Yeah, I just took Darren Waller in the third round of a startup dynasty league
deal
in a super flex tight end premium. And I was just like, you know what? No, it was a second. I'm sorry. It was a second.
Still.
I was at the 207 or something like that. I'm like, how the heck did he fall back to me? I said, I would never normally do this, but if Waller falls on your lap in the second round, I'm all about it. And Justin wants to know Kittle or Waller. And I would say Waller in this situation because there are less receiving talent, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but there's less receiving talent in Vegas. We know Waller is the number one target, de facto number one receiving target in that offense. So, yeah, I go Waller.
Yeah, Waller. You said everything I would have said. So, yep.
He said he'll take Travis over a wideout. And shout out to For Whom J. Bell Tolls. Jeff Bell, what's going on, fam? How are you, brother? Thanks for stopping in. Throw a tilt in the chat. Anybody out there that wants a question, that has a question about a player, feel free. Throw it in the chat. We answer them sporadically throughout the show. That's part of it, man, because the tilt is always real, and we keep it real. And one last player that I want to talk about, obviously, it's the sophomore running back, CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He finished as running back 22 last year in PPR formats, and the hype, I believe, was a little bit too high last year. He was going at the end of the first round, and I saw him go 106 in a startup, and I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? People don't realize it takes some time for rookies to adjust to their surroundings, and he was a smaller back. I think, Juan comped him to Maurice Jones-Drew, which is a great player comp in size, physicality, whole 9 yards. and the way they play, the way they cut, the way they juke. That spin move in one of the first couple weeks that he was playing, where he did a spin move and cut up the field for like 35 yards. It was awesome. And now this year, his ADP is at 26, running back 15. So I want to ask you, because I know you're not the running back heavy kind of guy, would you be willing to take him as your RB1 at that ADP? Because you're normally taking somebody else ahead of him, like say a Kelsey or a Mahomes.
So the Clyde Edwards, the CEH hype last season was out of control.
Agreed.
Like, seriously, seeing him go in the first round, it's like, what? Are you okay? I mean, okay, fine, but that didn't work out well for the people who did it. No, I'm kind of out on him because I don't think that offense is going to produce an RB1. I don't think that offense can sustain an RB1. They pass. They're a pass-heavy team.
Right.
They're going to run the ball when they have to set up like play action. They're going to run it enough. But I just don't – CEH has talent. I just don't think that offense supports him being an RB1.
So are you more comfortable as an RB2?
I take him as my second running back. Yeah, RB2, I'd be okay with that. I don't have him across any of the leagues I'm in.
Same. I have no shares.
No shares, not one.
Maybe in redraft, depending on where I pick. Now, if I'm picking in the back of the first round and say I can get maybe Saquon Barkley's falling this year, I could take a Saquon Barkley and then let it wrap around and take, ADP 26. I could take a Christian McCaffrey and you might wind up with a CEH falling back to you, which, I'd be happy about that as well. So, that sounds good. Let's see, only 13 games played last year. He's like the second or third target on that team behind, the previously mentioned Kelsey and Hill show. But he does have an RB2 floor. So that's what I'm okay with. And if he works more into the offense, he should be able to creep into high RB2 range or possibly low RB1 range, depending on how much goal line usage he can be productive with. We saw him getting stopped at the goal line last year with multiple opportunities. He just couldn't punch it in. So I'm eager to see him in year 2, whether or not he can actually produce more so for fantasy. I think his yardage goes up. He had over 800 yards last year rushing. I think he's a safe RB2 to say the least.
I mean, he probably is. And he could end up in that RB1 category. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think that's a thing where for me, that's too risky for my RB1.
Fair enough.
But then then I'm like, Mike Davis, RB1. So who knows? But I got him.
I mean, to be fair, Mike Davis was an RB1 last year.
I know he was, and he's probably going to be again this year in Atlanta. I got him in the 26th round of a dynasty startup 2 days before he signed with Atlanta.
Wow.
So I'm high on Mike Davis.
I like Mike Davis this year. I mean, I don't know who's having a quad competition between him, Saquon, and A.J. Dillon, but one of them's going to win it.
They need to speed crushing watermelons between those bad boys.
Speaking of crushing things, we're going to move on to the Broncos. All right, it's Nate's team, everyone. For those of you that don't know, guilty as charged over there. I don't know how you're a Red Sox and a Broncos fan. I'm sure there's a funny story about it.
There is. Well, there was just no team here when I was a kid.
Okay.
And my dad grew up in El Paso, and somehow that made him a Red Sox fan when he was growing up. So I just became a Red Sox fan.
Interesting.
And yeah, I'm pretty diehard. It's silly, but yep.
Well, there's a diehard QB battle in Denver this year. It seems like there's almost always a quarterback battle every 2 years at least in Denver. And this year it's between Teddy Bridgewater and Drew Lock. Now, either one of them are not going – they're going undrafted in redraft 16 man rosters, 12-team leagues. Can either one of these guys be viable for fantasy this year, or are they just a weekly streamer?
They're a streamer for me. I don't trust either one of them.
And who do you think wins the battle?
Aaron Rodgers.
You really – wow, high hopes. Just like the song said at the beginning
right.
of the show. high hopes for the Mile High Club there.
I just really, because if this is what they're sitting at and they didn't take freaking Justin Fields with the 9th pick, like the reason that there's a competition every couple of years when Peyton Manning isn't playing for the Broncos is because John Elway is terrible at grading quarterbacks in the draft. Terrible at it. Traded up for Paxton Lynch, took Drew Lock a full round before he needed to take him. We ended up with Trevor Siemian, who was a 7th-round quarterback starting here. Like, the position is an issue here. So, no, I just – Drew Lock is Drew Lock. And Teddy Bridgewater is essentially Drew Lock, but, like, slightly more accurate on the deep ball.
I think Teddy's going to beat him out. If everything stays the same, and I know there's slight whispers of Aaron Rodgers moving to Denver one way or another, and that would be great for you. I'd be happy for you, not for me. I don't own much Denver stock in Dynasty or anything like that, and I do not own any Aaron Rodgers. But I do think Teddy Bridgewater can beat out Drew Lock. He's got more experience. He's a little bit more accurate, especially on the deep ball, like you mentioned, and I think that's going to help everyone, all the fantasy weapons on this team, more so than what Drew Lock can do. And we're going to start out with the running backs because there are 2 running backs in this offense this year. They went out and they drafted Javonte Williams, and they still have Melvin Gordon left on a 1-year contract. Now, I know the hype is high on Javonte Williams. I am going out there and telling everyone to go out and buy Javonte Williams if you can in Dynasty. But for redraft purposes, his ADP of 68 is above Melvin Gordon, who is listed as the starter. He's going 2 running back spots, almost a full round ahead of Melvin Gordon at ADP 76. Who do you like more out of the 2 running backs?
I mean, Javonte Williams, they traded up. They made kind of an aggressive trade up in the 2nd round to get him. I was excited when they picked him up. I really liked that UNC backfield last season. Between him and Michael Carter, like both just incredibly talented running backs.
Absolutely.
The thing with Melvin Gordon that we saw last season is that he has a little problem handling the ball. And Javonte Williams' receiving upside, I think has a little bit more receiving upside than Melvin Gordon does, in my opinion. And I think what speaks to me the most is that they aggressively moved up to take him in the 2nd round when they already had Melvin Gordon. They could have kept Phillip Lindsay, and they signed Mike Boone. And I'm not saying Mike Boone is ever going to be anything. Believe me, I spoke about – I think I hyped him up on our waiver wire show towards the end of last season when Dalvin Cook was hurt, which, whoops, sorry.
Whoops. Yeah,
Whoopsie.
no, I was down on Mike Boone. I do not like Mike Boone. He did not show me anything good in that Minnesota offense.
Nope.
I think he's strictly a backup.
Yep, he is.
For Denver.
So my personal prediction, and I've said it a few times, a few places, Javonte Williams, if he's not the RB1 in Denver to start the season, he will be by week 3 or 4 because Gordon's going to drop a couple of passes or Gordon's going to fumble a couple of balls at the goal line and Fangio's going to yank him. So even in redraft, as an RB2, I'm okay with him, or an RB3 or a flex play guy. If you can get him that late, I'm okay with that. In a little bit, depending on how things go in training camp, I might even take him as an RB1. A later RB1.
I mean, it depends. If their ADP stays the same right now, I'm okay with either one of them for redraft because it's pretty late. Like you're usually taking them as your RB3, RB4 even, depending on how heavy you draft running back. And Javonte Williams is going to take some time to take over that backfield. It may take longer than 3 weeks. You might see a split timeshare similar to what we saw with DeAndre Swift and Adrian Peterson last year. So we don't know exactly how it's going to plan out, but eventually Williams will take over, and when he does, it's going to be terrific.
Because that offense is going to be running the ball a ton.
Absolutely. Your offensive line is actually rather good.
Finally, man. It took a few years to get back to that, but yeah. I love Javonte Williams. It's not a bad backfield. I mean, you're right. You really can't go wrong. And if they're going to end up running the ball a ton, I mean, both of these guys might be viable.
Yeah, and we talked about it last year between Phillip Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. having a somewhat equal split. I thought it was like a 160 to 140 split at the beginning of the season, and obviously Philip Lindsay kind of withered away from that carry total, and it was the Melvin Gordon show. And I think he finished like RB14 in PPR formats. So the guy still got it. Yeah, he still has it, but it's mainly because some of the pass catching work that he can still do. So I think it's a great opportunity for Javonte Williams to sit in camp with Melvin Gordon, learning from Melvin Gordon, because they are similar in their style of play.
Yep, that's very true.
All right, coming back, the bounce back candidate from Denver, Courtland Sutton. How is he going to affect Jerry Jeudy? Now they're both going well. Courtland Sutton's already surpassed him in ADP. ADP is 74 overall, wide receiver 31. Jerry Jeudy ADP at 91. Wow, that's pretty far off there. It is. It's almost 2 full rounds. How does Sutton affect Judy's fantasy value?
Okay, so it depends on who the quarterback is, I guess.
We'll say it's Teddy Bridgewater because that's my pick.
Then not really. I think that Jeudy is being drafted appropriately. I think that he's going to be probably wide receiver 1B in that offense. I think we're going to see a pretty even target share between Sutton and Jeudy. I mean, they got Jeudy in the first round, and he's just a crazy talented wide receiver. I can't see them not basically splitting targets. And they could easily both, because, I mean, really outside of them, you've got KJ Hamler.
Right. So what I was looking at was, sorry to cut you off. Looking at was the kind of identical situation that Teddy Bridgewater was in last year in Carolina with Robbie Anderson, DJ Moore, and Curtis Samuel in that offense. Now, he was able to make all 3 of those guys fantasy relevant on a week-to-week basis. You didn't know who it was going to be, but at the end of the season, all 3 of them finished inside the top 25. And you know what? With Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton, I think the arrow points up for them, and I think both of them are of value this season. Number one, Courtland Sutton was hurt last season. And anytime you're hurt, you're coming back off of an injury, your ADP is going to be lower. Jeudy, he flashed in 2 or 3 games. He had that one big game at the end of the year. And that was it. So with his ADP of being 91, I like Jeudy even more so in redraft than Sutton, because I'm getting them at a later value because they're very, very similar. That's true. In production.
No, that's a good point. And I think people are really ripping on Jeudy for drops, but also
look at rip on Drew Lock for the quarterback play.
Drew Lock, Jeff Driscoll, Brett Rippon. Yeah. I mean, he had no consistency in his rookie season. And this is one of my arguments where people are crapping on Baker Mayfield, but he had no consistency his first 3 seasons in the league.
It was a rotating Mayfield, by the way.
Me too. When there's no consistency for a young player, it affects their performance because you're trying to learn a system. And yes, you played college ball at an elite level, but how many of these guys ran an NFL style offense? Very few of them.
Right.
Kyler Murray didn't. Baker Mayfield didn't.
Didn't one of your wide receivers play quarterback for you guys the one game?
Kendall Hinton. He had 1 passing attempt. Poor kid, man. I feel so bad because he was practice squad and he got his shot. But then I've been reading in camp that it looks like he's going to they'll probably make the roster as a wide receiver teamer. Special teamer and wide receiver 5 somewhere around there.
Right on.
But no, I mean, Jeudy, there was no consistency for Jeudy.
Right.
So that's confusing when you're trying to figure out how to play in the NFL. If he has consistent play at quarterback this season, Jerry Jeudy is going to be a steal at his ADP, an absolute steal.
I like him at his current ADP of 91. I mean, I really do think he's a steal. He's being drafted as the last wide receiver 3 out of all these wide receivers, and I think he has mid-range to high RB2 upside, wide receiver 2 upside. I mean, we saw it in 1 week. If we can see it on more, like you said, a consistent basis, I really like Judy, and I like Sutton too. I mean, I wouldn't pass on either one of them for that reason. Moving on to the tight end now. Noah Fant finished his tight end 9 last year. Didn't really do too much for me. I am off of Noah Fant. I can't. I mean, he dealt with injuries last year. He dealt with bad quarterback play. But as an every week tight end for fantasy, it seems like as much hype as he had coming into the league, I think it's what now? It's the 3rd year he's been in the league. It's going to be his 3rd season. He's just not transitioning enough and not showing me enough for fantasy purposes to take him in the same range as, I mean, I would rather take Cortland Sutton than Noah Fant at ADP 74 or 79. That just doesn't make any sense for me to go up and reach for Noah Fant. And I'm telling people here on the Tilt, you probably shouldn't either.
Yeah, no, you shouldn't. My reason, it was similar to yours, but I have one little added caveat here. Albert Okwuegbunam.
Alberto, talk about him.
Alberto's talented. He's a big body. He's kind of built like Chase Claypool, actually. And it sucked, man. He got hurt right as he started to kind of roll into that offense. That would have been really good for Drew Lock. They had to combine 17 touchdowns together at Mizzou when they were in college. Right. So he's going to cut into Fant. Denver's not a team that can support 2 tight ends being productive. And by the end of the season, it's going to be Alberto because, dude, Fant's gotten two seasons. This is his 3rd season. We still haven't seen that first-round pedigree out of him. He just isn't doing it. So I'm not touching him. I mean, and if he does kind of go off, I think he might end up waiver wire in some of your leagues.
Yeah, he's probably one of those guys that I'll let somebody else pick up and drop when they find out that he's not producing the way they hoped. Yep. Only 3 top 10 finishes last year. Somehow he finished inside the top 10. It's just a bunch of compiled stats in 2 or 3 games. And I don't want that. I'd rather have a mid-range tight end scoring 8 to 9 fantasy points for me on a weekly basis than someone that's going to hit 22 one week and 0 3 or 4 weeks out of the year. I don't want that.
I'm taking Gerald Everett before I'm taking Noah Fant. I'm taking Mike Gesicki before I'm taking Noah Fant. I'm taking Tyler Higbee before I'm taking Noah Fant because I think all 3 of those guys' upside is far higher.
I'm not so much on the Gesicki train, even though he is a local New Jerseyan, lives a couple towns north from me. He went to high school up here. But, really good friends with a friend of Mike Gesicki. I'm off of Gesicki this year, but I like Everett as a sleeper. We talked about him last week, and we also talked about Tyler Higbee, who, was kind of a sleeper last year, just didn't produce as much. He had that one big game against the Eagles and then kind of disappeared. I think under Matthew Stafford at the helm, I think Higbee's going to be great. And I agree with you. I would rather have Higbee or Everett later in my drafts than I would Noah Fant at his current ADP of 79.
Yeah.
All right, let's bolt it up and go into the LA Chargers. And we're going to start off with the rookie record breaker for passing touchdowns, 300-yard passing games, amongst other feats that he did in his rookie season. Justin Herbert, ADP of 44. He's going as the QB6 in drafts. Do we see him maintaining the kind of production in year 2 that he did last year, or does he come back down to earth a little bit? And of course, is he worth drafting at his current ADP?
So yes, he is, in my opinion. I think he's going to be even better this year than he was last year. That's really saying something.
Yes.
But Anthony,
we're on the same page there, my friend.
And I don't. I get it. I get the idea that there's going to be a second-year regression. We've seen it. We've seen it before with guys like this. But he's in a new offensive system. Anthony Lynn is gone. And Anthony Lynn held him back, believe it or not, even though he was so good. Anthony Lynn wanted to start Tyrod Taylor.
Right.
Like, okay, bye. And he's already making a mess in Detroit with that offense as the offensive coordinator. So I think that Herbert's in a better situation now than he was last year. I think that Austin Eckler is going to be healthy all season, and that is going to be huge for him. Huge for him. Austin Eckler is a Colorado boy, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, he grew up in like the middle of nowhere in San Luis Valley in the mountains.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned offensive coordinators because the Chargers, they got a new offensive coordinator this year with Joe Lombardi. And for those of the people that are listening and watching out there who don't know who Joe Lombardi is, he was the quarterback coach for the last 5 years for the New Orleans Saints. All right. So he worked every day with Drew Brees. All right. So when someone works with Drew Brees, and you have a similar wide receiver selection as a Keenan Allen with Michael Thomas, a big, tall guy that can run and play in the slot, like those things are intriguing to me. I love Justin Herbert. I may love him more than a Kyler Murray, a Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, because first off, he does have a rushing floor. He's not afraid to run the ball.
Right.
He's going at a lower pick. ADP 44, man, that's late 4th round. I am all about that. That means I can grab 2 running backs and my wide receiver 1 or tight end 1, depending on who falls to me, either Waller or Kelsey, and then come back around and grab Justin Herbert. I'm all about that. Like, doesn't that sound intriguing? Like, that's enticing for a redraft roster.
Dude, being able to get him that late,
I mean, I don't know if his ADP stays there because this year, and we've talked about it on multiple episodes already this season, the tides are changing for the quarterback. It's normally they come in, you play the late round quarterback. Oh, I'm not picking a quarterback. If I don't take the top 3, a bunch of them fall. But this year is a little bit different in ADP. They are sprinkled in round to round. You know, we're seeing, like I mentioned earlier, we're seeing Mahomes in the end of the beginning of the second. We're seeing Kyler at the end of the second, or Josh Allen at the end of the second, Kyler Murray at the third, Lamar Jackson at the beginning of the 4th, and then we have Justin Herbert at the end of the 4th round. It's no longer wait on quarterback and see what happens. If you're waiting, you're getting guys like Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, Ryan Tannehill, which are okay quarterbacks by my standards.
Mine too.
The way that the league is transitioned to a more pass-heavy offense, you want one of these stud quarterbacks. And a lot of league winners had Justin Herbert on their rosters last year.
Well, and especially when you have a pass-catching back like Austin Eckler as part of that system. And I'm going to throw up saying this, Joshua Kelly. But still, I know. But it can't be all Austin Eckler all the time. And
Joshua, say that name one more time.
Joshua Kelly.
I was a big believer in him, and
me too.
Unfortunately, but he's still on the roster. He's still there,
exactly, and he'll get carries.
And he was a 5th round pick, so give him some time. You never know.
And he'll get some work in the passing game. I mean, all I'm saying is that I think Herbert's got a lot of targets and a lot of weapons in that offense. And to the moon, man. I love him. I love it this year.
I am in on the Chargers starting guys. Herbert, Austin Eckler, ADP of 11. He's going as the running back 9 right now. I'm all about it. I mean, I don't care that he had a down year last year due to injury. And I think he even finished in like RB26 and he was injured.
Right.
You know, so do we see him making a comeback into the top 10 like he was in 2019 as an RB4? I don't know if he's RB4, but I know he's going to be inside the top 12.
He'll be inside the top 10. Maybe he could be RB4. I don't think that's crazy.
I don't think it's too crazy to think about because we just mentioned Joe Lombardi with Justin Herbert.
And Alvin
now, if
Kamara.
It's going to be the same kind of offense, doesn't Austin Eckler become that de facto Alvin Kamara-esque running back, catching the ball out of the backfield, and he gets first dibs to be the all 3 down back? So, I mean, Austin Eckler's kind of sneaky towards the end of the 1st round. I mean, he may be one of those guys that actually falls into the 2nd round when we get news that, you know, if Aaron Rodgers comes back, Devontae Adams moves back up, Tyreek Hill, you know, things are going great in training camp, this, that, or the other. You know, Austin Eckler, he's pretty good. And I'm happy with Austin Eckler as my RB1.
Yep, me too. I'd be pleased with him.
And I mean, if we talked about Austin Eckler being an RB1, are we okay with Keenan Allen being our wide receiver one at an ADP 30?
Absolutely.
Just
I
like
love Keenan Allen, man. I don't know why people fade him every single season. It drives me nuts.
Every season, it seems like he just falls and falls
Every
and falls.
season. And the dude does nothing but consistently put up fantasy relevant wide receiver one numbers every freaking season.
Yeah, like last year was the first time since 2016, since the 2016 injury, that he didn't play 16 games. I think he missed 2 last year. And he's usually inside the top 10, 12 wide receivers. I think he finished wide receiver 14 last year.
And he missed 2 games.
Right.
People, unless you're in a
he's
league with me, stop sleeping on Keenan Allen. Like,
a model
real.
of consistency. The guy averages 10.5 targets per game last year, 7.1 receptions per game. Like, you want this person on your team.
Well, and like, what's his? I don't have it in front of me, but like his contested catch rate's got to be ridiculous. It's got to be.
Sure. I don't have it in front of me as well, but
things like, dude. Okay, I think we agree here.
Yeah,
Keenan Allen's good.
All right,
Keenan Allen's real good.
Maybe we'll split hairs on the next one with Mike Williams, ADP of 139, wide receiver 50. It's his last chance. He's in a contract year. He's always gotten injured. Are we taking a shot on him for fantasy later in drafts this year?
Maybe, probably not. See how
or
things.
Would you rather take? You want to play a quick name game?
Let's do it.
Let's do Mike Williams or Darnell Mooney.
Darnell Mooney.
All right, Mike Williams or Cole Beasley.
Mike Williams.
Mike Williams or Corey Davis.
Oh, that's a really tough one.
That's a tough one. I saved it for the end on purpose.
That Jets wide receiver room is weird. I mean, probably either or. They're probably about the same to me. Depends on how I'm feeling that day. Which name do I like better?
I'm almost there with you. I have Mooney over him, and then I have Williams slightly ahead of Corey Davis because I do not have faith in Zach Wilson and that Jets passing offense. And that's the only thing that separates them. I think that they're going to be, they're a similar type player, big, can run the outside post. I think Williams actually does have a chance. He's always had that chance. He needs to do 2 things. He needs to stay healthy, and Herbert needs to throw him the ball. If that happens, he's going to be in the wide receiver 3 conversation, and you're getting him later in drafts, ADP 139 going in the 14th, 15th round. Like, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I'm okay with that. Corey Davis is talented, but like you said, Zach Wilson makes me nervous. BYU quarterbacks in general in the NFL make me nervous.
Yes.
Who was the last one that was actually
from BYU? You got me, man. You'd probably know this better. We both hosted a trivia show, and neither one of us know. But
I think it's Steve
McNair.
Steve McNair went to Alcorn State.
Oh,
Steve Young actually, probably.
Really? Oh yeah,
he was BYU.
Well, that's a good BYU quarterback.
Yeah, but that was 30 freaking years ago, man. It's just the thing about, and people don't think about this when you're talking, like, yeah, Zach Wilson was really good at BYU, and I won't argue that, but he was really good at BYU and BYU's system.
Right.
There's not an NFL team that's going to run a BYU system. That's why Taysom Hill, also from BYU, is not a starting quarterback in the NFL, because it's like quarterbacks from the Air Force Academy. Air Force Academy doesn't throw the ball.
They run
the ball. And that's all they do. And their quarterbacks are all very mobile quarterbacks, but they're never going to succeed in the NFL because they just don't throw enough. And Zach Wilson threw the ball more, but I just don't see him fitting in a pro-style offense and being successful.
He made a lot of mistakes as well, and that I think a lot of people forget that. He missed a lot of passes. He's not very accurate. He has a great deep ball, but it's not a very accurate deep ball.
Right.
He needs to run out of the pocket. You shouldn't need to run out of the pocket. And nope. he will get chased down and smothered if he tries to do that with the Jets. I think the Jets are a run-heavy offense, and which is great for Zach Wilson because he's okay. He knows how to run the ball. He can run the ball out of the backfield if need be, try to scramble. But I don't think you're going to get the production out of the receiving side of things. So right back to it, I like Mike Williams a little bit more than Corey
Yeah.
Davis. I am out on the Jets receiving core.
Yep.
Jared Cook, is there anything worth mentioning about him? I mean, yes, he moved from the Saints. He took over the Hunter Henry starting role in this offense. Hunter Henry really didn't do too much last year. Where did he finish?
It was way down there.
Actually, he finished as tight end 12.
Well, that just tells you how bad tight ends are.
Yeah,
right now.
I mean that's. I think you can kind of write Jared Cook in for a tight end 13, 14 range. I mean, nothing much to write home about. That's for sure.
So I'm going to say something here.
He's a dart throw.
He's a dart throw. He's not going to end up being the tight end one in that offense by the end of the season. It'll be Donald Parham.
Ooh, spicy. I like that.
Yep.
Is that a hot take?
I really don't think it is.
Fair
I think Jared Cook's going to be 34 midseason or something like that. He's not Travis Kelce. He's not George Kittle. He's not Darren Waller. He had one like really good season in Oakland when he was 30. He hasn't been a consistently productive tight end in the NFL. I didn't really know who he was until he had that season in Oakland where he was like tight end 4, tight end 5, somewhere around there.
I think he's going to be a little bit of a nuisance. Like when we get down to the goal line, instead of Keenan Allen getting that touchdown pass or Eckler getting that touchdown pass, they're going to find Jared Cook in the end zone because he was good at that inside the red zone for the Saints. So I think he's going to be just like every other tight end in underneath the top 5 that actually get targeted on a regular basis. He's going to be touchdown dependent.
Yep. That's a fair take.
So I will, like we said, some other players, I will let somebody else take them, drop them. I'll pick them up and stream them if it's a good week for them to be played.
Yep.
All right. Last team moving into the desert. We're going to Vegas, baby. You want to go to Vegas with me, Nate?
I do. Let's go to Vegas.
If I go to Vegas, yeah, right. I live right near Atlantic City. I was there this weekend. I won a couple $100. Don't tell my wife. She may have just heard that. But when I go to a casino, I take a little bit of risk here or there. But it looks like John Gruden and Mike Mayock really took a risk this year with the offensive line for the Raiders. They got rid of Rodney Hudson. They got rid of Gabe Jackson. They brought in some younger talent. We don't know if Richie Incognito is going to be healthy. And if he's not, what are we looking at for fantasy players with Waller, Jacobs? We have a running back conundrum with Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake, and we'll get into that in a second. But what does the offensive line do as a whole for fantasy production from the entire team of the Las Vegas Raiders?
So I'm out on that running back situation. Want nothing to do with it. I'm out on their wide receiver situation. I want nothing to do with it. I love Darren Waller, though. Darren Waller is the only player on that team that I am drafting. Unless, there'll be a lot of guys waiver wire. Like maybe Hunter Renfrow has a week where he goes off and you get lucky and you snag him and you throw him in. Probably not, but could happen.
Right.
But I'm out. I don't think John Gruden should be coaching in the NFL. And I can't believe they gave him a 10-year contract.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It's insane because I don't understand what he's doing.
No one understands what he's doing.
It's wild. Darren Waller is fine. Darren Waller is bulletproof. To me,
that's funny. I have it on my notes. Waller should be just fine.
Yeah. Well, he will. The ball has to go to somebody. Like this is the NFL. Someone's going to get touches. Someone's going to get targets. Someone's going to get touchdowns. That guy in Oakland, Las Vegas, is Darren Waller. Everyone but that offensive line.
He's the number one target in that offense. 145 targets last year, 63 more than any other receiver on that team. Yep. So yeah, it's pretty much plain cut and dry. It's easy analysis. Waller is the number one guy that you would want in that offense, and you're saying that you don't want anybody else. So with this running back conundrum between Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake, you're just like, I'm staying away from it.
Yeah, well, I don't. Kenyon Drake is like,
At ADP and 97, Kenyon Drake may be kind of enticing late in the game.
But he's okay.
He finished RB17 last year in Arizona?
Sure. Okay, that's fair with Chase Edmonds. It's such a weird situation because I think Josh Jacobs is like way overhyped. And I think that he's going to with Kenyon Drake there, like there are certain people I won't name who have him ranked as their RB4 this year.
Who, with Kenyon Drake or Josh Jacobs?
With Josh Jacobs.
Oh,
you know who I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. No.
No, that's insane.
This is my opinion on Jacobs. He has touchdown upside. I'm okay with him falling to me in the 4th round as my RB3.
Yep.
Because I do think he will have weekly value running the ball, especially around the goal line. But I'm not relying on him or Drake for anything more than that.
Right.
I actually almost prefer to take Drake if I had to pick out of the two, because Drake you get later in drafts.
Right.
And if anything were to happen, God forbid, to Josh Jacobs, which we've seen him deal with injury but play through.
Right.
Drake would be the de facto number 1 running back in that offense and get the full workload. And that's something that intrigues me later in drafts at his current ADP of 97. So that's something that I looked at when I was doing this. And I'm like, you know what? He has a little bit of flex play with the passing game. And if anything were to happen with Jake, if I get Jacobs, you're kind of forced to take Drake along with him later in the draft.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, Drake is probably the one of the two that if I'm forced to draft one, I'm going to take Kenyon Drake. I just like Jacobs. He's going too early in drafts for me. And plus, I mean, to be fair, also, you should all know, and you probably know because I'm a Broncos fan, I hate the Raiders. I don't mind the other two teams.
I'm sorry. I should have saved your team for the end then, huh?
No.
It would have ended more on an upscale.
No, this is dude. The thing that's funny about fantasy football when you get this deep into it is those allegiances kind of start to fade.
Right.
I don't hate the Raiders as much. I hate their offense, but that's for fantasy purposes. I think it's too much of a dart throw on these guys for them to live up to their ADP. Kenyon Drake going later, okay, I'm fine with that. Josh Jacobs, like, I just don't – it comes down to I don't trust John Gruden.
Fair enough. And in that sense, you're not taking a shot on either Henry Ruggs or John Brown.
No, definitely not. Ruggs doesn't make any sense in that offense with Derek Carr. Derek Carr can't do what Henry Ruggs needs him to do to be successful. He's a waste.
Yeah, he would need to be – I mean, Derek Carr, in his defense, he finished – I have a great little stat. He finished 10th in the league on deep passes with 44.6% completion. Okay. But 10th. With a guy like Henry Ruggs, you need to be in the top 5, my man.
Yeah. Behind guys like Patrick Mahomes.
And you need an offensive line to protect you long enough to throw the ball deep.
Right.
I mean, I know Henry Ruggs is fast, but it still takes time for him to get open. I think we could see Henry Ruggs possibly taking a step up in the right direction this year if they used him more as a Tyreek Hill. Use him on the flat, out in the flat.
Yeah.
Try to make plays for him, not just run out wide, run the post and turn around and catch the ball. Because Derek Carr is not that kind of quarterback.
Nope.
If they started using Ruggs like what they used to do with Amari Cooper, running slant routes across the middle, now that's would different. Be a little bit different, but it's yet to be seen. But
they're not going to.
And they're not going. But I mean, they did a little bit with Aguilar. Aguilar's long bomb touchdowns that he had last year, he caught them. They were slants.
That's true.
I think Henry Ruggs. I'll take a shot on Henry Ruggs. I am off of John Brown. He's been on way too many offenses. He's like 32 years old.
Yep.
I don't know how he wound up in the Raiders offense to begin with. I mean, I don't know why they went out and got him. I mean, when Brian Edwards is still there. So right. that's just what says to John Gruden's opinion on Brian Edwards.
It's
I'm not even going to mention Brian Edwards. He's going undrafted. He may wind up being like a waiver wire hero this year. But, we said that last year about him as well, and it just did not pan out.
Well, so it kind of feels to me like John Gruden thinks he's playing Madden in dynasty mode, where like the numbers are shiny, but like in reality, he's built this offense with a bunch of parts that don't fit together. Because like you said, the John Brown signing makes no sense.
0 cents.
None. It's crazy.
Why? Because you had Tyrell Williams on your team and he left. Like, he wasn't any good anyway. You know, Henry Ruggs was supposed to be that field stretcher. That's why you drafted him. Unless they're going to use Henry Ruggs in a different way, which, you know, you'd get him at a discount this year. He's going later than he did last year in the 14th round. I'm okay with that as a flyer, as my wide receiver 4 or 5 on my team. Okay.
I'm probably not doing that, but
I'm probably not doing that. Let's see where he's at in ADP. What do we say? ADP
130.
130. Let's see if I can find someone close to him that we can do. Why can't I find it right now? Come on. Henry Ruggs. Ruggs, where are you at, Ruggs? Show yourself. Oh,
so
man.
he's he's going a little bit earlier than Hardman is.
Oh, that's why I was scrolled too far down. Oh my goodness. All right, so yeah, he's here at 49. So, all right, Mike Williams or Henry Ruggs?
Mike Williams.
We already said Darnell Mooney over that. T.Y. Hilton or Henry Ruggs?
Michael Pittman. Probably.
Michael Pittman's way ahead of him at 42.
Right. So probably Ruggs because
Russell Gage or Henry Ruggs?
Russell Gage.
Gabriel Davis or Russell or Henry Ruggs?
Gabriel Davis.
Nice. I like you. I knew we were friends for a reason.
Well, we've been friends for a while, so I hope.
I mean, it's not just because of Gabriel Davis, of course, but
right.
No.
No, but dude, Gabriel Davis. I'm excited. And he's going late.
You know, and Jeff was in the chat earlier. Shout out, Jeff. You know, he is not a firm believer on Gabriel Davis. I almost had to sell him to his own team, like to his own fan. I couldn't believe it when we broke down the AFC East.
I have been in some conversations with Jeff around where he does not like Gabriel Davis either, and I think that's very interesting. I wonder if his opinion has changed with all the Cole Beasley stuff going on.
No, he doesn't think. We had the conversation today, actually, on Twitter. He said that he does not think that Beasley is going to retire. He thinks Beasley's going to stay. He's going to get paid, and Beasley's going to stay in the slot. And he thinks Emmanuel Sanders is actually going to take snaps away from Gabriel Davis, which I don't see happening. No. Man.
I love Manny. I love Emmanuel Sanders.
He was a Denver Bronco. That makes sense. Full circle. There we go.
And he was talk about like just an all-around stand-up,
great Denver Bronco.
Great human being. Like still a big part of the community here even. But no, I'm sorry. That's not going to happen. Dude, he's what? He's got to be 34, 35 now?
30, you know, he's 32. He's 32.
Man, he feels so much older than that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's 32 years old.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, no. Gabriel Davis is talented. Emmanuel Sanders is talented too. But, I mean, Gabriel Davis is a younger guy that's got more of a rapport with Josh Allen, and, I mean, that matters too.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Nate, we did it. We broke down the AFC West.
I didn't sound like a moron.
Why would you ever sound like that? Oh my goodness. No.
I'm just always happy. Dude, since I started doing this, like every time that I come across intelligent, I'm just like, I did it again.
You did it. I don't know how. Like, I still don't understand how I have Twitter followers.
Right? Dude, that still blows my mind, man. And the whole Phil Yates thing, that really blew my mind.
Oh, you have like 3 times the amount of Twitter followers that I have. I don't know why.
No way.
Yeah.
That's crap. We're going to have to change that.
Oh, I like the way you're talking.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Well, you know, you are popular. Some people may or may not have followed you yet. Tell everybody where they can find you, your work, and everything you got going on.
Okay, so you can find me on Twitter at JanateJackFF. That's going to be changing to just my full name probably in the next couple of days because it's time to be an adult. Yeah, I know, but I'll always be JanateJackFF in spirit. You can find me at IBT_media for my columns, and I have a couple of shows with In Between Media, as well as I run their social media, and my wife is a big part of that as well. Shout out Jen, at Jen Polvogt, at 32 and 32 FF on Twitter as well for 32 and 32. Obviously, coming off the edge.
Yeah, Tuesday nights.
Every Tuesday at 7 p.m.
Eastern. It's growing, man. It's such a great show. It's such a fun time.
Man, it's so much fun. And it's just like, it's so laid back and easy and with some of my favorite people in this space. I mean, I couldn't ask.
And you see my show sheet for this show, and then you look at the other show, and it's so smooth. It runs smoothly with no show sheet. It's just organized chaos. That's all it is. All I do is keep track of things. I don't even write a show sheet for them.
Well, we've all been friends for long enough now.
Yeah,
it makes sense. Then one more thing I want to plug at FF Thieves. It's kind of a new collective that's going to be doing some awesome things that I'm hoping to start getting things rolling soon. Shout out G-Man J, shout out Shane Barrett, and shout out, my God, there's a million people. Troy King. They're all a part of the Thieves movement.
What is this Thieves movement you speak of?
So it's a group chat with some of my favorite people in the entire world. We've got Laquan LQ's in there.
I'm in a league with Laquan this year, the Jersey League. Laquan Jones, right? Yes, Laquan Jones. I am driving an hour and a half to go meet Laquan Jones.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Got Joey Wright, Sam Wagman in there, Dan Turner, shout out. God, there's so many people. And I'm Jeff, our homie Jeff Bell is part of that group.
Man, I feel left out with all those people in there.
Well, it's funny. I got added. It started as the Scott Fishbowl 102 chat for 2020. And then just kind of turned into this whole thing. Rumboy's Robbie is in there with us as well.
Nice.
I'm missing a million people, guys, and I'm really
sure
sorry if I missed you. But we just kind of decided, like, we've got all these awesome content creators: Roto Heat Craig, the GIF Man, Jordan Vanek, the Meme Man, Scott Simpson, Bo McBigtimer in there too. And we're just like, we all have all this awesome content and we have ideas. And so we're going to turn it into something where we're pushing our own content. We've got some new original ideas that we're going to do. Some of them football focused. Some of them have nothing to do with football at all.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to definitely check that out when it comes out.
Yep. Oh, and shout out Will Feltner. He's got a game show coming out tonight. So check him out at the Real Fantasy God. He's awesome. Nice. I've done his show. So I'm done.
All right, man. That was a long list. Everybody go follow Janate Jack FF. Go follow Nate Polvogt on Twitter at Janate Jack FF. And at 3232 FF. Is that right? FF 3232?
At 32 and 32 FF.
Oh, I screwed that up.
It's all right. You're the best. Stop it.
I appreciate you, Nate. Thank you again for coming on the show. For everyone that is still here, we still have people in the chat. I'd love it. You could find me at FF_chef on Twitter. I am James Crease. Juan and Mr. Swanson will be back next week. We are going to do the show at, I believe, around 12:30-ish on Wednesday. We're going to do a little midsummer mock draft right in time for training camp to start, and then we'll go on from there. You can find some of my articles at ballblastfootball.com. I put out some Dynasty stuff for them, and you can find me on Coming Off the Edge Tuesday nights, 7 p.m. with the rest of the Chaos League. Until next time, guys, keep tilting, and we'll talk to you later. Peace.
Thanks for tuning in to the Tilt is Real Fantasy Podcast. Like and subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Check out our website at thetiltisreal.com for more great fantasy football content. We'll catch you guys next time on The Tilt is Real.